What's up, guys? Gibby12 and Eagle Balls here. Today we're going to be talking about a more serious subject in the paintball community, and that's paintball media. This is going to be a pretty long video if you don't really want to watch the entire thing. Basically, the gist of it, pay for paintball media. Stop being cheap. It's only like $5 or $10, and the quality will be a lot better. Now, that being said, we're going to go into a lot more detail of like ups and downs of paintball media and where it's been the past 4 years. So, Mike?
So I'm going to start off the video with basically just an overview of where I think paintball media has gone since about 2010, 2011 upwards to now. So we're looking at like about a 4-year trend. And one of the first things we did when thinking about this video was looked at probably the biggest paintball media company in terms of just views and actual marketing size, and that was HK Army. And so I took a lot of interest in looking at all of their videos over the past 4 years. And one of the things that really jots out, and we're going to post these actual stats so you guys can read into them and see what you think about them. But it seems that HK Army, at least, they peaked in terms of views and really user engagement in about 2011. And so one of the first things I looked at was their World Cup videos over the past 4 years. And so in 2011, their World Cup video got 1.6 million views, and it's actually been getting less and less views each year since then. 2012 was 423,000, 2013 was 228,000, and last year's World Cup video got 187,000 views. So you're looking at, in a span of just 3 or 4 years, almost 1.4 to 1.5 million less views on a video. And the trend continues with some of their MPPL videos. Their 2010 MPPL video got 670,000 views. Next year they got over 1 million views, and the year later they fell back down to a little bit under 600,000 at 593,000. And so then I took a look into basically their posts on PB Nation. Cassidy, whenever he released a video, went to the videos thread on PB Nation, where we also published all of our stuff. And you can see that even the user engagement on PB Nation has been falling. In 2011, he released the video "The World Is Ours." It was showcasing a bunch of different paintball events, and it was sort of the first really high-quality slow-motion paintball video. And it got upwards of 1 million views on YouTube. In the forum on PB Nation, the thread got 168 comments and a little bit under 9,000 views. And this was published November 22nd of 2011. The next year, in April, at the end of April, so about 6 months later, he published his MPPL Las Vegas video, which got 178 posts and about 12,000 views. So you're seeing that upwards trend toward 2011, 2012. But the year later, he posted the World Cup West Coast Open when we went out to California. PSP had that event there. And his posts only got 27 replies and 1,800 views. And this is as of September of 2013. And then most recently, he posted a Huntington Beach film from 2014, and this post only got 5 replies on PB Nation and less than 1,000 views at about 880. So you can see that from 2011, not only did the total number of views for them on YouTube fall, but the actual engagement on PB Nation fell too. Even just simple posts like, "Wow, this video is great," or "Can't wait to see the next one." Just these posts that were so frequent in 2011, 2012 started to disappear. And, we'll go into the analysis of it later, but it seems like people started taking these videos for granted as if there would always be one every event. They would have these really complicated edits and angles, but because they became more commonplace, more frequent, people didn't seem to be as impressed with them. Moving on to a more general sense of paintball media, we've seen a real disappearance of paintball media companies over the years.
So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. So I've been hopping around between a couple different companies over the years. Started off on Eagle Boss, obviously, but World Cup, what was it, 2013 that I went to Durder? Yeah. So I've filmed for Durder for World Cup 2013, and that was a great time. They were a great company. They paid their employees decently well for paintball media standards. Really took care of you, and they had a good team. Dirter Media at that time was Nick Kakuza, Danny Quinn, Chris Lowe was working for them for a couple of different events. They had an incredible team that really was the pinnacle of paintball media. Besides Cassidy Sanders and like the HD Bros. Other than that, I think that core squad, with me included, was one of the best teams out there. But things started splitting up. Chris Lowe went to Spantastic Media. I also went to Spantastic Media, and Kakuza and DQ were still working on we're still working on Dirter videos for a little bit. But the problem with Dirter, what happened with Dirter, is what a trend that we see in most paintball right now is people got cheap. Dirter died because people would refuse to pay for paintball media because Dirter was making great content. They were putting out, what series were they putting out?
They had Reckoning and Headshot.
Yeah, they're putting out Reckoning series. They had Headshot. Every once in a while they have the Short Bus. They were putting out great content, but people would refuse to pay for it because so many other companies were just putting out content for free, especially like Cassidy Sanders. He'd be putting out this MPPL video that was in like 4K quality and super slow motion, and Dirter couldn't keep up with that, and so we lost Dirter. Nick went to Virtue. Virtue hired Nick as their media person, and I'm very happy for Nick. He deserves that, but it's all becoming a trend now with media companies where the good media people are getting hired by the big corporation paintball companies in order to do advertising and event videos like that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we're losing a lot of creativity because of that.
Yeah, I think one of the important things to note that Dirter did was different from sort of Cassidy's take on a paintball event, is they did things like Reckoning series, which were more documentaries, and Headshots, which weren't 3 to 4 minute edits. It wasn't sort of find a really cool song and stitch together some clips to film it. It was really like 17 minute headshot videos with commentaries and interviews and 3 or 4 different angles, and the Reckoning series were like 45 minutes, some were over an hour. They took months. They took months of just storylines, months of interviews, months of going to practices, going to pre-event practices, going to the events, going to the hotel room meetings during the events. And so you saw Dirter developing something that was completely different than what had been done before in terms of really great edits. I mean, you would see Drew Templeton, his grind videos were kind of similar to what Cassidy does. It's sort of like 3 to 4 minute edits. We did a bunch of edits from PSP events, but no company really took on the sort of documentary outlook that Dirter did, and I think that's why they were so successful.
Yeah. And that brings me to my first point specifically on individual media companies, and that's Cinna. Cinna with GI Sports right now is doing great work. I'm gonna preface this. Anything I say about these guys, I don't hate any of these guys. They're all media, and they're all like doing great things for the industry. That being said, this is where things are gonna start to like throw some shit out. That being said, what Cinna is doing is not new. Everything that he has done right now has been taken from other people's videos. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just not this new, bright light of paintball media that people are praising him to be. Cinna, he did The Rookie, which was a great series about his brother and their team to start, getting into the pro division. But it was basically kind of copying, Dirter's, their documentary style videos, and that wasn't new. The only thing that changed was Cinna had a nice fancy FS700 camera that could do super slow motion video, and people took to that better than they took to the Dirter videos, because Dirter was still using these Canon cameras that can only do slow motion, but not super slow motion, HD, in your face kind of stuff. And Cinna keeps on trying to reinvent himself with these different videos, and he did like the mic'd up series where he put a microphone on a player, and people thought that was, like really cool and revolutionary, and it's a great idea. I love doing that. The only thing was, HK did that 3 years earlier with Tyler Harmon, and then they never jumped on that. They really should have, but Cinna is a very smart person for jumping on bandwagons that never were really jumped on. And that's why right now he's with GI. He's doing pretty good work with GI. The only problem is when you give someone a super nice camera, that doesn't always necessarily translate to super good videos. He's gotten a lot better over time, and he's worked some kinks out, but he's really being praised for things that he never really pioneered, and that's how I feel about Cinna.
Yeah, I think another important thing to touch upon, and it goes off this whole commercialization of paintball media, it's not found only in videography. If you're a paintball photographer out there, and I know this really hurt Eagle Balls a lot, when PSP changed their media policy, where they would only allow an exclusive number of photographers, and they would only and the passes were a couple $1,000s. That really hurt a ton of photographers. When we started out, one of the first ways we were able to even start out was because you would order a $150 media pass, and you would book 5 to 8 teams for about $150 each, and you would actually make some money going to a PSP event, or after hotels and flights and cars, you would at least break even. You wouldn't be losing hundreds of dollars to go to an event. Yeah. And so one of the things also that I was taking a look at was you saw these really great photographers, just to list a couple off to you, and some of these guys are still around, but definitely not to the extent that they used to be. You had Stretch from 1904 Photography. Jeff Stinston used to take really amazing photos at paintball events. Myself, at paintball events, I was under the name of MLB Photography, but it was also for Eagle Balls, and there were events where I would hire 6 to 8 teams to photograph. You had Mike Moore from MM Photography, you had Mike Deep Photography, James R. Grave Photo, Nick Martin from CXI Photo, and these were people that, at least when I was playing in the early stages of the PSP, those were people you looked forward to being able to photograph. It was something like having a photo taken by a guy like Stretch was like, wow, I could get a photo taken by someone who's really esteemed, who's really been in paintball media for a while, and it was something that you would go to a paintball event and actually look forward to at the end of the day. And now you sort of have a handful of paintball photographers, and they're great. There's Gary Baum, who's great. Aztec Photos took over. Spantastic does paintball photography. Social Paintball does some photos at events. But you lost this whole individualism, and I think if you look at really the albums of all of these guys, they all had their own style, and they were free to explore their own style. I know Stretch was known for getting, he's a really big guy. He was known for getting these crazy angles, either high or low. Jeff Stinston was known for just really crisp, sharp, well-focused, well-framed images. We started developing our own sort of photography style, and now you sort of have
the grass.
And you have Gary Baum, who is an excellent photographer. I mean, goes all over the world for paintball, and you have Aztec Photos, another great company for paintball, but they're sort of very generic photos. Yeah. It's sort of like you would batch edit them, 100 images, same filter. I know that at least when I was editing photos, each photo was incredibly personal, and if there were photos that I thought were exceptionally good, I would bring them up to Photoshop. I would take them out of Lightroom, put them in Photoshop, and spend 10 minutes on a certain photo. I know that Drew Templeton from Grind, when he would photograph, spent a lot of time on all of his photos. Stretch definitely spends a lot of time on all of his photos and tries to make them very unique. And so, it's this whole disappearance of individualism and creativity and innovation in paintball media. So,
going off that, my next topic that I really want to talk about is the loss of individualism that Mike started going off of for photographers, but it's happening in the entire media industry as a whole. We saw with Dirter, Virtue took apart Dirter's team and put Nick Kakuza at the top of Virtue. Cinna is now with GI Sports. Fantastic Media is really the only true media company that's still by the player for the player right now. Social Paintball. I don't really want to go into full detail about how I feel about Social Paintball. All I can say is they are not for the player. They are for the money. And, they've kind of made their own system with their soft clothing line, their, what is it called? Is it Grit paintball gear? Yeah. I think it's called Grit paintball gear or something by Social Paintball. And they're really, the only reason they are in this is for money. I used to love Social Paintball and everything they're about. But their business model is not the team model. What they do is they will take the cheapest or if not free filmmakers, because there are always going to be filmmakers out there that want to film paintball. Everyone can pick up a camera and film paintball. It really depends on how good you are, and that's how far you're going to go. But with Social Paintball, they will take those really average filmmakers, they'll send them to an event because they're super cheap, they're really easy, and they'll get an okay edit out of it, maybe. Most of the time they're pretty shitty edits. Personally, I think their PSP Dallas, the last video they ever made for the PSP, sucks ass. It was pathetic, because they don't want to go the distance to pay that extra money to have a solid team. They used to have when Chris Lowe worked for Social Paintball and Joel Petra worked for them, they had a solid team of good cinematographers that could put out really decent work. But now they just pick up any guy with a camera on the street that says, hey, I want to film a media event. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, though. I'm saying their quality is down because of that, but picking up new filmmakers is not a bad thing. That's how everyone gets their start in paintball. I got my technical big break because of Fantastic Media. I was able to fly out to events and film with them and get paid for it because they trusted in me and believed that I could do good work, and I put out good stuff. And I think Jonathan Spaniel, the owner, is fantastic, built a really good team out of that, because he's not just all about the money, he's about the player as well. Also, I'm not saying that Fantastic is a great company because I work for them. I'm saying they're a great company genuinely because they are. I've seen how media companies work, and Fantastic is a wonderful media company. That being said, we also need to make money. We can't go to events expecting to, work 3 days, get shot at all the time, have our equipment break, have all this expensive gear, fly out to hotels and pay for everything and not make a little bit of money. That's not fair to anybody. No one will want that. I understand that paintball teams, they're spending a lot of money just to go out and play, and I get that. But if you want good media, you're going to have to pay for it. It's not just going to be, Virtue, GI Sports, and HK going to be filming all the awesome videos. They mostly only film pros or the teams that pay for their, equipment. If you want good media, you always will need to pay for it. It doesn't matter. If you think about it, a basic media package for Fantastic Media goes for $150 for videos of 1 or 2 matches. It goes upwards, absolutely. It's a little bit more expensive. But if everyone on your team chips in at least 1 case of paint worth of money, maybe $30 to $50, you'll have media. That's it. Every person on your team just pays $30 to $50 extra. I understand you're paying a lot for paint and the event in total, but if you're paying that much, you probably want good media. So pay for it. That being said, what will paid media do for paintball? Paintball right now, since there are so many good media teams, working for the big companies, there's no more little guy like Ego Ballas or I don't even know. There's
Scored.
I don't know.
Before everyone.
Yeah. before the commercialization of true paintball media, there was so many small channels that were putting out stuff. You know, like Chris Lowe started off on YouTube, and that's how he got recognized. We started off on YouTube. That's how we got recognized.
DQ was alone.
DQ was all on his own.
Bros were alone.
HD Bros were alone. That's right. Who's the guy from New Zealand? Hodge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hodge was on his own. Hodge got huge because of the paintball videos that he put out, and HK Army hired him. That's how we all got our starts, from YouTube, which is awesome. But there is none of that anymore. There are these small guys that can't compete with, these expensive, upwards of $2,300 or $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 cameras. The little guys just can't compete. And we've really seen a loss of creativity. We all are just trying to be this commercial HK or GI Sports video where we have super slow motion, they're all punched in.
I would just say, I would be reluctant to say, I think HK has done a really good job over the years, because I think contrary to what Social Paintball did, HK never went out and tried to mass produce videos. They were always very, very particular with what they published, and you would never see sort of more than one video per event or hundreds of videos showing up at once, because Cassidy, I think, always and to this date still does stay very true to what he publishes. I think he sees it as a big reflection of his own work. And so I would say, different from Social Paintball, which might try to put out basically as many videos as they can per event, Cassidy is more into tuning into one really great video. And I think that's also where you sort of see this commercialization, where you see that, well, if you put out 10 videos over the course of 3 weeks, just by general YouTube marketing and advertising, you will increase your revenue. But then, you see a loss in quality. It's sort of, would you rather have one fantastic video that might get, 800,000 views and a ton of shares and comments and likes, or would you rather have 10 decently okay videos that might get, 50 likes, 10 dislikes, and 10,000 views each? Which would you better profit from? And I think a lot of companies, especially Social Paintball, see that sort of mass producing videos would be a greater success for them financially.
Yeah, they're definitely more quantity over quality, and I'm not bashing any of the large companies for putting out the stuff they put out. HK Army still does incredible work. Cassidy is probably one of the best filmmakers in the game, or if not the best filmmaker in the game. HK Army has done so much for paintball and so much for paintball media that I can never bash on them for all the things they do. Mr. H, people have their opinions on Mr. H and what kind of lifestyle HK Army is trying to show. But regardless of that, you can't argue that HK has put so much money back into the sport and created, they have the most viewed videos of paintball. They're constantly pushing the edge. Cassidy put out, the first 3D paintball video. He put out the first 4K paintball video, first super slow motion stuff. He pioneered everything you see out right now. But the problem is, HK Army, Cassidy is not only working for HK. He films other stuff on his own time. He has to make a living. HK pays him really well, and they keep him on because he's an amazing filmmaker. But it's not his dedicated job all the time. That being said, we have lost some innovation because of that.
Yeah, I think it's also... It's not even that Social Paintball deserves criticism for what they did, but we're merely just sort of addressing the fact that they did choose a quantity over quality approach and sort of the implications of that. And I don't think Social Paintball necessarily deserves to be shunned for trying to output as many videos as possible. I mean, obviously it worked. They might be the most subscribed paintball YouTube channel. I think they are.
Yeah, besides like PB Nation.
Yeah, and obviously people always watch those videos and always look forward to them. But you do have to at least acknowledge the fact that that approach diminishes creativity. You if you go back to, I don't even know if they're on YouTube, but if you go to Vimeo and look at DQ's old edits, there's one called John and Friends with John Woodley, Ronnie Dizon's in there, back on distortion. I mean, those are just edits that leave people saying, how did you do that? I mean, there was a video, I don't think we ever published it, but I mean, there was a time where I spent weeks just trying to mimic what DQ did with all of his bar effects and transitions and syncing the film with the music. And you saw, he was the first to really do sort of the lens flares and the flashes that we mimicked a little bit, and so did a bunch of other companies. And I think that we don't see any of that anymore because of this whole commercialization. We don't see really unique and interesting motion tracking, which DQ and Cassidy introduced. We don't see really sort of profoundly emotional edits or deep storylines anymore. Mm. And I think reflecting on, sort of what I brought up at the beginning of this video, if you look at sort of the decline in posts even on PB Nation when Cassidy posts a video, I think people have gotten either bored or content with sort of the current situation, where even Cassidy's videos are overlooked and get 5 replies on PB Nation as opposed to 170 in the past. I know we released our shooting video of the RSX, and I posted it in the PB Nation video forum, and we still don't have a single reply. And there were times when we would post a video and get pages of replies as well. And I think even these things that are kind of trivial, people just saying, wow, great edit or great video, they might look small, but I really don't think they're superficial. I think they're important to note, and the fact that people aren't even taking the 10 seconds anymore to comment on a PB Nation thread and say great edit really expresses where Paintball Media is.
Yeah. People really feel entitled to Paintball Media right now because there's so many different companies putting edits out and things like that. Because once again, it's you can get a pretty decent camera now for really cheap and put out your own videos, and it's so easy to do that people have become so desensitized to good content. And that's happened with like the Webcast too. Everyone wants a free, PSP or NXL webcast. And if you want a free webcast, that's fine. You're going to get shit quality. And if you pay for any, look at any big sporting event. It's all pay-per-view. They all have thousands of cameras there, and they make tons of money because people are paying good money to see good content. And that's the most important thing, is people are just too cheap now. I don't know. It's $10 for the weekend of NXL. Seriously, you're not going to shell out $10 for the webcast just so you can see high quality content? The people say, the webcast's not that good. I don't want to pay for this shit. If you pay for it, it'll get better because the webcast will be able to make money and improve their equipment and improve their quality. It is all a cycle that you need to be able to pay for good media.
Yeah, I think people have to respect where paintball is. A lot of people have expectations for paintball to become way more popular than it already is. There are people who will argue that paintball should or will be as popular as the major sports like football, baseball, basketball, soccer, and we'll save that debate maybe for a future video, but going off at least just from the present of where paintball is, you can't make a comparison that it doesn't cost money to flip on NBC and watch a football game, because they're not the same. There aren't millions and millions and millions of people watching paintball. There aren't companies that will spend millions of dollars advertising in stadiums or at events or in commercials. If you see paintball webcasts, the commercials, for the very large majority of them, are strictly paintball companies who aren't paying $50,000 for a 30-second slot on an advertisement on a Saturday, and PB Access, I think, did an exceptional job. I mean, people who maybe aren't familiar with videography and what it takes to really produce a webcast like that take it for granted, but it costs a lot of money to put on that type of webcast. There are people behind the scenes that you'll never see, that you'll never know, who aren't even that much associated with paintball, that were in control of the webcast and keeping it up and running. You have to pay those people. You have to pay for all of the equipment. You have to pay for all of the broadcasting services. You have to pay to, feed these people, to house these people during the events. You have to pay for them to get to the events.
It's an incredibly expensive process.
It's an expensive process, and for people to be reluctant to say pay $10. I mean, I think $10 is a gift for 3 days.
$10 is an absolute gift.
If you're watching, 7 hours of paintball for 3 days, you're watching 21 hours of paintball for $10. That's crazy. I mean, I think they could probably get away with charging $20 to $30 for a weekend, and honestly, if that's what it took to produce great quality, I think that would be fair.
Yeah, I agree. And as much as everyone hates spending money, no one. Well, that's not true. I can't say no one likes spending money. When you don't have copious amounts of money to spend, no one likes spending money. It's never fun. But if you want to see paintball grow, or you want to see paintball media to become what it can be and what it should be, you'll need to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, even just take a look at the Reckoning series. Let's say, take a Dynasty or Infamous episode, for example, that was, say, 48 minutes long. And they charge, what were they, like $9.99?
Yeah, it was like
$10.
And you usually got like a short bus episode too.
They would come with the free short bus episodes, are hilarious. And people would, and I think when you buy them on Dirter, you get a certain amount of downloads, and so people would email them to their friends or save the video and send it to their friends on Dropbox. And, you're saving your friend $10, and, if you really, really can't afford it, at least you're seeing the content. But I think the majority of paintball players who are paying $50 a weekend for case and paint and gas money and travel costs can afford an extra $10. When you think of the hours and hours and hours that go into filming a Reckoning series, editing a Reckoning series, filming interviews, filming practices, you think trying to break down sort of the hourly pay that, say, Nick Kakuza would receive for Reckoning series, I would say it's probably below the minimum wage in terms of hours he put into filming and editing versus the total money that he saw after, he tried selling off one of his 45-minute edits is, like, probably not much at all.
And that's why Dirter's gone, because Nick got a great offer from Virtue that he couldn't pass up, and he was basically... Like, you could say Dirter Rob was behind the scenes. I had never seen Dirter Rob do anything for that company when I was there. And, Dirter Rob tried to sell the company to Nick. And, Nick got a way better offer from Virtue where he could actually make money for, he could make a living. Nick lives filming paintball right now for Virtue, which is awesome. I love that. But we lost a great company because of that. And that's all because you cheap bastards wouldn't pay $10 fucking for a video.
So I think that's, where we sort of stand on the issue. It's difficult to point fingers.
Yeah.
I think that it's been a difficult ride for paintball. I mean, even developing paintball media in the first place is difficult. Just coming out to events and even giving it a shot is hard financially. It's a lot of physical strain. It's a lot of stress while filming and while editing, and there's a lot of pressure to sort of produce something better each time. And it mirrors a lot of paintball. It mirrors the industries that are producing the products where, you say, well, what more do we need out of a paintball gun? Well, what more can we do with a paintball video? And it's a difficult spot, but I think that at the end of the day, if people aren't willing to sort of reimburse the innovators for what they're trying to do, then they're going to stop innovating.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it, basically. What Mike said is very true. If you're not going to... No one went into paintball media because we wanted to make millions of dollars. That's never going to happen. Not for a long time, if it ever does happen. We went into it because we love the sport, we love making new stuff. But if we want to keep innovating and keep making new content, we can't do that for free. I hope you guys like this video. I hope it's very informational. Take what you've learned, pass it on to others. Show this video to everyone because I want people to know what's going on in paintball media.
Also, the last thing I would say is just comment with what your take on it is. We're just speaking from sort of a little bit of a mix between an objective and subjective standpoint, and obviously, I myself haven't, I haven't been to a PSP event in almost 2 years now. I obviously disappeared a little bit. Aaron's been involved, but not to the extent that we really were in like 2012, 2013. So, we're not some authoritative force saying this is the problem, but this is our take on it. And if you have a different opinion, be sure to let us know. I mean, I'm genuinely interested in what it is, and don't take what we're saying as sort of definite as the core reasons. We're just sort of, giving our firsthand experience of it, sort of from what we've personally dealt with and seen and heard and listened to, and I'm interested in what you guys think as well.
Yeah. And fuck tech, PB.